So you think you suck at improvising guitar solos, eh? You've learned the pentatonic shapes, you've learned the modes, you understand how it all works, but you just can't seem to create anything musical with it when you improvise. You've put in the work and learned what you were supposed to learn, but it still isn't working. So what the fuck is going on here? Look, you don't actually suck at improv. You've just been focused too much on the pre-work. In order to improvise great guitar solos, you should learn these things. But there eventually comes a point in your practicing where you have to switch things up and focus more on applying what you've learned. This is the missing piece in a lot of intermediate guitar players practicing. For example, when you work on the pentatonic shapes, this is good. Gold star for you! But when you try to improvise, this approach to practicing is not going to help you. This is because improvisation requires its own method of practicing. Practicing scales does not mean you're practicing improv. Practicing fretboard memorization does not mean you're practicing improv. Putting on a backing track and noodling and playing the same shit you've been playing for years does not mean you're practicing improv. In short, in order to get better at improv, you must practice improv. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this fucking amazing lesson. If you don't know who I am, my name is Brandon Zion, and we are back at it again with another world-class guitar lesson. Seriously, my lessons are world-class. That's why they get so many views. It really pisses me off, but I'm not even mad. In this lesson, I will be walking you through the process of practicing improvisation. For this lesson, it's assumed that you have some baseline skills. You should know the modes, the pentatonic shapes, how to build chords, and the notes of the fretboard. Some of you guitar chefs may have heard of this stuff before, but you're not super familiar. If that's the case, there's a special place in hell for people like you. But because I'm the nicest guy in the world, I'll give you a very quick recap. If you already know this stuff, feel free to skip ahead. We're gonna be improvising over this tune, which is in the F Dorian mode. Don't let the Dorian mode scare you. This is a very easy tune. But how do we know this tune is in F Dorian? Look at the key signature. We have 3 flats. Who knows what major key has 3 flats? Yes, it's E flat major, but we don't have a single E flat major chord in this progression. Okay, well, let's try again. What minor key has 3 flats? C minor. We do have a C minor chord, but when I listen to this track, it doesn't feel like it's in C minor to me. If it does to you, then you can think of it as being in the key of C minor. I personally don't hear that, but it's not wrong if you do. And just like C minor is the relative minor of E flat major, F Dorian is the relative Dorian of E flat major. All of these scales share the same notes. So the modes we can play in this key go as follows. That was too fast for you. Just slow the video down, damn it. I told you this was gonna be a quick recap. These are the pentatonic shapes that we can use to improvise over this track. I like to informally name them based off of the modes they came from. You can think of the pentatonic shapes as skeletons of the modes. Next, we'll go over how chords are built. The chord progression we're looking at is F minor, A flat, C minor, and B flat. To build chords, you have to play the major scale off of the root. Our first chord is F minor, so let's build the F major scale. To build a major chord, we take the first, third, and fifth notes of the scale. This means that F, A, and C would give us an F major chord. Now, what you have to memorize is that minor chords have a flattened third. So to make an F minor chord, instead of playing A natural, we play A flat. This gives us F minor. Now let's repeat this process for the rest of the chords in the progression. I'll explain why this is important in a moment. Can I get an A flat major scale on the screen, please? Our root is A flat, our third is C, and our fifth is E flat. Done. Next chord is C minor. This gives us C, E flat, because we have to flatten the third, and G. Then finally we have B flat. This gives us B flat, D, and F. Now we know the individual notes of every chord in the progression. These are called chord tones, by the way. And the reason we want to know them is so we can target them in our lines that we play. And for the last part of our recap, we'll talk about notes on the fretboard. Remember, the F Dorian scale is made up of the following notes: F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, and E flat. The reason we want to know the notes of the fretboard is so we can play those notes. When a professional guitar player looks at the fretboard, this is what they see. Compare that to what an intermediate guitar player sees. Feel free to screenshot this. It is my goal that by the end of this video, you will be closer to the professional level than the intermediate. But of course, you must understand that you will not reach this level overnight. And you should not get pissed off and quit because you aren't there in 2 weeks. I've been teaching guitar online professionally for 6 years now, and the most common problem I see is the fact that intermediate guitar players are always in a rush. Then they get pissy and emotional when they don't get something in a short time frame. Or you can just leave hate comments calling me out for not knowing what I'm doing to make yourself feel better. Change the way you think, pathetic fucking dorks. Get off the cigarettes. Okay, now that we've reviewed what you need to know, let's start applying everything. Our goal is to improvise freely over the fretboard. This means we have to practice improvising over the entire fretboard. Want to know an improv hack? There are really only 5 positions for every key on the fretboard. So we're going to go through each one and look at what we can play. Let's start in the 3rd position of the fretboard. By 3rd position, I mean frets 3 to 6 plus or minus 1 fret. So it's really frets 2 to 7, but our index finger is going to be hanging out around the 3rd fret most of the time. Does anyone remember what mode is found in the 3rd position of this key? And of course the answer is G Phrygian. So here's what we can play in this position: the G Phrygian mode and G Phrygian pentatonic. So that means in this position, we can play the G Phrygian mode and or G Phrygian pentatonic. I'm going to play 2 choruses. In each chorus, I will prioritize a different scale. First, I'll choose G Phrygian, then I'll choose G Phrygian pentatonic. By the way, in this context, a chorus is a full playthrough of the chart. The chart only has 4 bars, which means I'll be playing 8 bars of music since I'm doing 2 choruses. Now, we could just end here, but intermediate level guitar players often make the mistake of sounding too scalar when they improvise. I also sounded fairly scalar just now, but it's because I wanted to show the full scale for each chorus. I feel obligated to say this, otherwise you nitpicky bitches would be all over me. Now, here's an important disclaimer. If you aren't fully comfortable with the scale shapes just yet, then don't fucking worry about sounding too scalar. I've noticed that beginner improvisers are really worried about sounding too scalar when they don't even know the scale shapes well enough yet to even be guilty of that mistake. I discovered this from watching some of my 52-week guitar player students improvise. They weren't fully comfortable with the scales, so my advice was to stop worrying about sounding too scalar. Instead, I told them to practice more and continue until they could visualize the shapes on the fretboard just as well as they could visualize the minor pentatonic shape. If you can't do that, then don't worry about sounding too scalar. Like, you're not even good enough for that to be a concern yet. If you are at that point, the way we can make ourselves stop sounding too scalar is by playing chord tones. Now, for the majority of you guitar chefs watching, you'd probably benefit more by drilling these scale shapes instead of focusing on chord tones. So don't rush into this. It's far more beneficial to work on one thing until you get it than it is to practice too many things at once and make progress in none of them. This is why it's a good idea to watch my videos, because I will change the way you think. If everyone thought like me, this world would be a better place. Now I'm gonna play another 3 choruses. In each chorus, I'll target a different chord tone. I'll stay in the 3rd position. Let's check it out. I'll quickly mention that after 2.5 months, 52-week guitar player is officially open for enrollment until June 30th, or once 100 new students sign up, whichever comes first. And if you aren't sure, you can book a call with my team to learn more. Enter the 6th position. The 6th position will be frets 6 to 9 plus or minus 1 fret. The mode in this position is B-flat mixolydian, and the pentatonic shape is B-flat mixolydian pentatonic. This time, I'll play 5 choruses. 1 with just the mode, 1 with just the pentatonic scale, and then 3 that use a combination of the 2, but I'll be targeting chord tones. We've officially covered 2 out of the 5 positions. At this time, I think it's important to remind you what we're doing here. You've probably learned the modes in the pentatonic shapes in the past. You've probably learned the notes of the fretboard. You've also probably even learned the theory behind how major and minor chords are built. But none of that actually helped you improvise better. Again, that's because you were not actually practicing improv. But that's what we're doing now. This is the process. This is the secret. And once you do this with 10 different tunes, it gets a lot easier. And before you know it, you'll be able to jump into any jam session and hold your own without having to make everyone stop what they're doing so they can tell you what key you're in and what the chords are. The next position we'll play in is the 8th position. So frets 8 to 11 plus or minus 1 fret. The mode in this position is C Aeolian, or just the C minor scale. And the pentatonic shape is good old reliable C minor pentatonic. I'll play 5 choruses again to play the full mode, just pentatonic, and target the chord tones. Let's give it a go! If you're wondering how or why I'm choosing these positions, here's the answer. I'm choosing these positions because I'm following the roots of each scale when starting on the E string. The 3rd position was G Phrygian, and the 3rd fret of the E string is a G note. The 6th position was B flat mixolydian. The 6th fret of the E string is a B flat. The 8th position was C minor, and the 8th fret of the E string is C. Based on this pattern, can you guess what our next position will be? The 11th position. The mode here is E flat Ionian, also known as E flat major. And our pentatonic shape is E flat major pentatonic. Now let's do another 5 choruses. Before I improvise in the next position, let's quickly discuss chord tones. What does it actually mean to target chord tones? Here's the answer. When the chord changes, you resolve to a chord tone. Said in simpler terms, when the chord changes, you land on a chord tone. For example, when the chord changes to A flat, you could play A flat, C, or E flat on beat 1 of the bar. When the chord changes to C minor, you could play C, E flat, or G on beat 1 of the bar. When the chord changes to B flat, you could play B flat, D, or F on beat 1 of the bar. And when the chord changes to F minor, you could play F, A flat, or C on beat 1 of the bar. By targeting chord tones, it forces you to think more about what you're doing. A super common improv mistake I see intermediate guitar players guilty of is not thinking about what they're doing. They just let their fingers go on autopilot and hope for the best. Now, you shouldn't be thinking too hard about what you're doing, otherwise you're going to be overthinking, which will translate to shy or hesitant solos. The ideal situation is to have a balance of both. Now let's move on to the 13th position. And after I finish my improvisation, I'll tell you a cool secret that you may not have noticed throughout this video. Okay, in the 13th position, we have F Dorian as our mode and F Dorian pentatonic as our pentatonic shape. Now let's just fuck into it. Now if we were to move on to the next position, we'd be back at G Phrygian again, just this time in the 15th position instead of the 3rd. You may try it if you'd like. The backing track I've been using in this video can be found in volume 2 of my Sexy AF track pack. If you can't afford the 27 bucks it cost, then you can get volume 1 for just $1. Do you remember before my last solo how I said I'd tell you a cool secret that you may not have noticed before? Technically, if you wanted to, instead of playing F Dorian pentatonic and G Phrygian pentatonic, you could just play F minor pentatonic and G minor pentatonic. This is because the notes that make up those minor pentatonic scales can be found in the G Phrygian mode and F Dorian modes. Let's listen to what it sounds like if I only use the minor pentatonic scale in those positions. If you would like professional and regular feedback on your improvisation, consider enrolling in 52-Week Guitar Player. After 2.5 months, we are currently open for enrollment until June 30th, or once 100 new students sign up, whichever comes first. If you're not completely sure, book a call to chat with someone from my team about whether or not the program is a good fit for you. And if you're watching this video after June of 2025, grab your spot on the waiting list for the next time we reopen. We have a 90-day refund policy, so go ahead and join now. Technically, you could enroll to avoid missing out and then always refund if you didn't like it, but I'm confident you'll love it once you get rolling. Just check out what these other students had to say. The link to join will be in the description for as long as we're open. This video on the website will have more information. Watch it. I hope you found this video helpful. Now just leave!